Welcome back to Sheet Metal is Fun. Today we're going to make an organizer bin. I made these over 40 years ago. Pretty useful. Over 40 years I've been using it. Maybe you'll have yours over 40 years as well. Let's go inside and get started. Welcome back to Sheet Metal is Fun. Today we're going to make an organizer bin. I made these over 40 years ago, just like I said in the introduction 10 seconds ago. But I'm going to show you how to develop a pattern, how we're going to notch it, how we're going to bend it up, and then at the end, you can decide what you want to put in here. You could put pencils, pens, candy, cookies, pastries. I'm hungry. All right, well, with anything we do, we always start with a drawing. So come on in and let's do a drawing here real quick. So what we want to do is, let's take these parts out. Get a good look at this. I'll explain that in a minute. In a minute, also in a minute, and in one more minute. So we always start with the base. Then we're going to add the sides, the back, and the front. So whenever we're developing a pattern, I always like to draw it out. So let's draw this thing out. So our tool bin, our organizer bin, is 4 inches by 8 inches. So let's start. Let's draw that 4 by 8 triangle, rectangle on here first. Here we go. That looks pretty good. That's about twice as long as it is wide. We always want to give ourselves the best chance for success. And then let's draw the back. And we're also going to draw the sides. And the front is going to come out here just a little bit because this is going to be a 90-degree corner. And we're going to show you how to develop that here in just a minute. Well, we're going to do a lot of stuff in the coming minutes, apparently. All right, let's put this other side on here. We know this line is here. We're going to do this one. And just for fun, we're going to show this is a 90-degree corner. Last time I showed you that this is how we show it. That's a 90-degree corner. I had a lot of folks that wrote in and said this is how they show a 90-degree corner. These things are regional and both are acceptable. Or if you have something that you do in your area, the main objective is just to designate that as a 90-degree. So now we're making sure that this line and this line are the same. So let's connect that. Now we're going to add. So, okay, you know what? First, one thing I want to say about this is our pattern right here. This is what this tray is going to look like. So that's the first step we always do. And since we've done that, let's go ahead and mark this. This is 4 1/8. The reason that's 4 1/8 is because when we go over to the box and pan brake to make this last bend, our finger on our box and pan brake is 4 inches. So since it's up to us to decide how wide we're going to make it, let's make it 4 1/8, and then our 4-inch finger will fit nicely in there. If a customer specifically asked for 4, nothing more, nothing less, then we would have to use a 3-inch finger on the finger brake. And whenever we get ready to bend that up, hopefully we can clarify what a finger is on a finger brake. All right, so let's get back to the drawing up our pattern. So now what we've done is we've drawn the pattern, and now we want to add in the things that help us assemble the bin. So if you notice here, there's a tab right here. That the tab is really not even part of the pattern. but the tab is what helps us assemble. So if we were going to weld this, if we were making this out of heavier material and we were going to weld it, you know what? Let's take a look at these. I just made these yesterday. This is a pass-through shelf. This one goes to the jail. So this is a welded corner. This is a pan, and I've bent it up and welded the corner. So on a corner like this, there wouldn't be a tab to put a rivet in. So this is, when this pan was being developed, it would have had an open corner like this, because it doesn't need the tab for assembly, because we're going to bend it up and then weld it. This one goes to school. This one goes to the jail. So there's going to be a bulletproof glass here, and this will be the pass-through when they can pass documents from one side to the other. So what we did here is I bent this up in one piece and then welded the ends onto it. So this is not a bend right here. This is actually a weld. So there's a weld that goes up here, across here, and then down the other side. So getting back to our pattern, this would have had an open corner. And then here's what it looks like on the back side. Here's that channel that you can see that's built into it. There's a hemmed edge all the way around, so we don't want anybody getting hurt. So this has a hem all the way around, and the built-in channel so documents can be passed from one side to the other. This side's a little wider. This is the side where people will be able to write on. So, all right. Those are not part of the organizer bin, but also I just wanted you to see when we're drawing, if this is going to be a welded corner, we're done. But it's not a welded corner. This is going to be a folded and riveted corner. So now that we've shown the pattern of our organizer bin, let's come on in here and draw in the tabs that help us assemble the project. So we're going to go ahead and put this tab here, this tab here. 1/2 inch is pretty standard. And then we're going to do here and here. Now, out here on the front, we've gone out 1/2, and then we've returned that. So this is a hemmed edge across the front. So let's go ahead and add that in now. So we're going to draw in 1 inch, and then we're going to bisect that inch. So this is 1/2 and 1/2. Now let's mark this tool. This organizer bin is 4 inches deep. So the width across the base is 4 1/8, just so we can bend it up nicely in our box and pan. But let's go ahead and write in all these dimensions. It's 4 inches deep. And it's 4 inches there. Across the bottom is 8. Since we're the ones drawing the pattern and we'll be the ones notching and bending up, you notice I haven't gone through and added the designation for inches in here. We all know this. For clarity, we're making this as brief and as clean as we can. And then this was 2 1/2. So here's our 2 1/2. Now let's add this hem across the top. So here's our 1/2 inch hem. Let's add a 1/2 inch hem here. We're going to add a 1/2 inch hem down here. I'm just adding this 1/2 inch hem that we will fold over. We've got one more side to go. One of the reasons we draw these patterns is it helps take the idea and get it into our mind. And it also, this is how we visualize, because we started with an organizer bin that's already been up. So what we have to do is deconstruct this, and this is one of the ways that we deconstruct it. We started with the base, the large footprint, the back, the sides, the front, and the handle. So here's the base. We made it 4 1/8, so it's easier on the box and pan. 8 here. It's 4 inches up in the back, 4 inches on each side. That way these corners come up and match. And this one, I believe, is 6 inches. 6 inches. So let's go ahead and make ourselves a note. Six inches. And then we'll measure that. And this is a 90-degree corner, either drawn whichever way you prefer. And let's see, that is this deconstructed. So while we have this, whenever I made this organizer bin, I wanted to add a little more volume so I could get more parts in it. But this could also be made a little simpler if we would have just made a straight line from this corner to this corner and then folded that hem. We didn't have to add this additional bend in here, which adds a little bit of complexity, but it's also good for your pattern development skills to add in complexity, or go with the plan B line. This is a nice straight line right here. So I think we are ready to go over to metal. So now that we have deconstructed our organizer bin, we've turned it into a pattern. Now we can come over here to a piece of sheet metal that, oh, you know what? Let's add up our cut list. Come on in nice and close, and then you get to see me do math. Who doesn't want to do that? Each one of these hems is a 1/2 inch. And we do that because the front of the break over there is a 1/2 inch. I'll show you that when we get over there. So let's figure out what our cut size is. So we're going to go 4 1/8 plus 4 plus 4, 12 1/8, right? 3 times 4 is 12 plus the 1/8. Now we have a 1/2 inch on either side. So that's going to be 13 1/8. So we did 4, 4, 4, that's 12. Added in our 2 halves, that's 13. And then we came back to the 1/8, made it 13 1/8. Now let's go this way. 8 and 4 is 12 again. 2 1/2 is 14 1/2. The 2 halves together is 1 inch, so that's 15 1/2. And then finally, this last hem adds 1 more 1/2 inch, so that's 16. So we did 4, 8, there's 12, 13, 14 1/2. These 2 halves together, 15 1/2. The final 1/2 inch hem, 16 inches. So now we have cut a piece 13 1/8 by 16. Now we're ready to move over to the sheet metal. All right. I'm going to try to hold this in a way that the glare isn't as bad. So what we have here on our sheet metal is what we have here on our drawing. So since we've cut our piece 16 inches by 13 1/8, I was able to take the scribe that we made before, and I made a 1/2 inch line here. That's going to be for our hem. Here's a 1/2 inch line, another 1/2. I lean the tool slightly toward myself and drag it. If you push, there's a chance you could gall in. We don't want to do that. So we're going to make a 1/2 inch. So now we've gone all the way around, added that 1/2. Now in the front of our handle, we have a 1/2 inch bend and then a 1/2 inch hem. So that allowance together, 1 inch, Here we have an inch right here. So let's go back here, add in that 1 inch line. So now what we've done is we've transferred our drawing to the metal. So far all we've done is go around the perimeter, added the 1/2 inch hems on all 4 sides, and then we came back and revisited the front and we added that second, which is going to be this 1/2 inch for the handle. All right, now I have the benefit of making this line with my high-tech super spiffy double scribe. So I set my scribe at 4 plus 1/2. So I'm going to make this line right here at 4 1/2. And in order to do that, put on my reading glasses, set my high-tech super spiffy double scribe at 4 1/2. I'm going to add that 4 1/2 down one side. I just added this one. I just made this line right here. Now, let's make this line across the back. There's the back, also 4 1/2. And then lastly, the third side, 4 1/2. So, maybe you don't have a super spiff, high-tech, highly skilled, highly paid professional tool like that. So, you could use your scribe. You could come in from this side and you could make a mark at 4 1/2. Make another one at 4 1/2. Come over here and go 4 1/2. Make that line. Make this line 4 1/2. And then we would connect those marks with our straight edge. So whenever we're shearing, if we're going to go to the shear, I always measure my keep. The keep is what your project is going to be. So let's say I found some random piece on the back of the shear that we're going to make this off of. If that piece was here, I wouldn't try to measure how long that piece and then do math. So we wanted 16. What if I found a piece on the back of the shear that was 20 inches long? I wouldn't come over here to the shear. We want 16, but I found a 20. I wouldn't come over to the shear and measure the 4. I always want to measure the keep. So I wouldn't take this 20-inch long piece and cut 4 inches of it off. I would measure my 16 because the piece we cut off is probably going to end up in the scrap barrel. So it doesn't do us any favors to measure a precise measurement on something that's going in the scrap barrel. What we want to measure is our project. Measure the keep. Measure what you're going to keep. So if this piece was 20, I'm going to come over to the shear. I'm going to mark this at 16 that I want, and I'm going to cut it off. I say that because also, since we came in 4 1/2 from each edge, that's our 4-inch depth plus our 1/2 inch hem. There's our 1/2 inch hem, and we're 4 inches deep. So we came in from the edge 4 1/2. I wouldn't take that dimension. I wouldn't go 4 1/2 and then add the other 4 1/8. I don't want to take all these measurements from one side. What I want to do, because then if there's any discrepancy in my stock, maybe I didn't cut it right, at least I know if I came around the perimeter and I marked 4 1/2 and then I marked 4 1/2 and I did that again a third time, at least whenever I fold it up, I know all my corners are going to come out even because they're all measured. Where if I started one side and went 4 1/2 and then the 4 1/8 for 8 5/8, if I made that mark, anything that's off in my stock would show up in my actual project. So always measure what you want. So I measured the 4 1/2 in on those 3 sides. Okay, so now we're going to add these tabs that are going to allow us to assemble. The way I like to do these, as a general rule, you always want to put your tab on the longer side of the project, because occasionally the box and pan brake is 4 feet long. The 10-foot brake is 10 foot long. And so let's say we had a pan that was 5 foot by 4 foot, something like this that's 5 feet by 4 feet. If I bend the short side up over there, now I'm left with I need a 5 foot bend, and I don't have room in my box and pan. My box and pan brake only goes up to 4. So we always want to bend the long ones in the brake, in the 10-foot brake. And so then when we come back to the box and pan to finish the project, we want to always come to the box and pan with the shortest part of our project. So if this was a pan we were bending up, and we did bend it up, I would bend the 2 long sides in the long brake, in the 10-foot handbrake, and then I would always do my shortest sides, save the shortest ones for the box and pan. Because what we have to do is set up each one of these individual fingers. You can tell this was a project, this was something, this is the one we're going to use, this is a 4-inch wide finger. And so a lot of these are leftovers from what we made last time. So the fewer of these that we have to set up, the better off we are. So we always want to leave the shortest end for our box and pan. All right, let's notch this thing up. So I always start on I'm going to start on this cut right here. I'm going to cut this straight in. This is called the raw edge. There's no tab on it. So I'm going to cut this straight in. Only time we go to the end of our snips is when we're notching. See how we went right to the end of the line? Is that a good angle? Now we're going to come back here. If you guys weren't watching, I would just eyeball that. But since you guys are watching, if this tab has any variation, it's not going to affect the project one way or the other. But let's go ahead and draw it in. Let's draw that tab in there. So what I've done is I've taken my scribe down to 4 inches, which leaves me with a 1/2 inch tab. Let me take that to the other 2 sides. But like I said, if you guys weren't watching today, I would have eyeballed it, because at this point, I can eyeball a 1/2 inch and be pretty good. So now we're going to cut it. Well, I always cut the short end first, the raw end first, all the way into the corner. Now I come back here. This is the one with the tab, and I stop a little bit short. Fold it up out of the way, and then cut to the end of my snips. Now, I have left this little pointy thing attached to the piece I'm going to throw away. Then we don't have to worry about it ending up in some place we don't want it to. So let's do that again. We've done one side, let's do the other. So we're going to start here. We're going to notch straight in, all the way to the end of the cut. I'm giving the camera a second to focus. Now we're going to come back to our 1/2 inch tab, and we're going to stop a little short. A couple of reasons we stop short. Well, I like to leave this little piece attached, and the other thing we don't want to do, which we can't impress our friends and neighbors if we came over here and went too far and ended up notching into our keep, right? And that's why we get up in the morning. Look at that. Now that's going to hang on to this little tiny piece that we don't want it to try to get to us. So now we've notched straight in here on the raw side. This is the 1/2 inch tab that's left on there. Let's go to this 6 inch measurement right here. Matter of fact, let's hold it the way the drawing is. I'm showing this 6 from that raw edge right here, this raw edge is right here. That's our raw edge. We're going to go 6 inches down. I like to use a scribe. With a scribe, we never are wondering what side of the line, right? I'm going to come down here 6 inches, and I'm going to make a mark. And while we're at it, look, I've already made the mark. 6 inches right to that mark. And I put a little prick punch on it. Let's go ahead and... Now this is a recreation of me putting in this mark. See that? Just like I did earlier before you guys got here. So now we have a mark from the raw edge down the hem to 6 inches. I have this. All this is a piece of scrap, but it's a little heavier. It's 18 gauge, so it's 50 thousandths. So it's a little more substantial. But you could use anything. You could use any piece of scrap you had. All right. So we could just grab a piece of scrap off the back of the shear, but it's got to be bigger than that one. There, look at that. Now we're going to finish up the development of our side. So what I want to do here is we're going to make this, we're going to develop this wing right here. So we know that's a 90-degree corner. This piece of scrap has a 90-degree corner on it. That's going to work out good. And we know this is 2.5. So that's 2.5. So we could just come over to here to our high-tech 2.5. We're going to do a 2.5 here and a 2.5 here. Or we could have measured that and marked it. We could have used a combination square for 2.5. We could have used a straight edge. But since we already have this high-tech super spiffy tool, we're going to use it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to develop this wing right here. We know we have 6 inches from this point to this point, and we have 2.5 here. So I've drawn 2.5. And I drew it on the wrong side. All right, okay. So we are going to draw... We're going to start right here. There's our 2.5. Here's our 2.5. So I'm maintaining this, and I'm going to swing that around till it shows our mark. So you see my 2.5 here. That matches the 2.5. Now I'm just going to swing that around. Let's do that again. There it is. You see our mark? Now... there's our wing. Let's do the same thing over here. Here's our 2.5. We're going to put that there. And we're going to swing this around. You know what I can do? I'm going to try to keep my elbow out of the camera. We want to maintain this 2.5 on that. And we want to swing this around till we just see that dot. There's our 2.5. So what we're doing is we're establishing this is 2.5 here, which matches this 2.5. So that now, when it comes together, this corner will all come together in the same place. Now, let's put our half-inch hem on there. And like I said earlier, we can eyeball a 1/2 inch. If you haven't seen our other lessons, anytime you're going to add something, a hem to your project, don't cover the project, right? Don't measure it and then cover your project, because then if you're off, you're not going to be able to see it. If I'm out here I can tell I'm a 1/2 inch. We'll do the same thing here. This is back to that part I was telling you earlier. That's a 1/2. And if we measured that, that's going to be a 1/2 right on. Let's cut it out. Here we go. All the way to the end, because I'm cutting the raw. Now we're on the hem. Now this hem just happens to be the angle that I want right here. And since it's the angle that I want, I'm going to actually separate these two because I just don't want to nick. I don't want to nick my tray. So out here, we're going to cut the raw all the way to the end. Now we're going to come back to the 1/2 inch scribe. And notice what I'm doing is I'm offsetting the two pieces so I don't accidentally notch the part we want to keep. Now we can finish this off. And this one, let's get those in the trash. Now we're done with the big snips. That's what we're going to call these, the big snips. We're going to go to yellows. You know what? Yellow and red cut the same. And since you guys already have reds, let's cut this out with our reds. Make sure that whenever you're cutting that piece, you always cover the piece that's going to come off with your snip. Just in case you didn't watch before, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this wrong. Doing it wrong. Doing it wrong. Oh, no, wait. Couldn't help myself. Did it right. All right. Since I already promised you doing one wrong, let's do one wrong. Here's doing it wrong, notching this thing wrong. So I've just notched this. And now, since I can see this part, it can come toward my eyes. So if I notch this, did you see how that, since I could see it, it could come to me. All right. Let's do it right. We're going to go here, and look, my snips are covering the drop. So when it comes off, it's going to go down. Wrong? Right. Where were we? We are... I'm going to try to show you this. There's one little thing right here that we probably don't have time for, but some of you out there are going to really appreciate that. Some of you are going to go, what was a lot of trouble? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our protractor, which I always think it's a tractor that lost its amateur status. And we're going to measure this angle. That angle is 150 degrees. 150 degrees. Half of that, 75. So what we're going to do is we're going to, this is called bisecting. We're bisecting this angle right here. I'm going to make a little mark here. That's 75 degrees. And we're going to do the same thing here, 75. I've only come over to this side because now we've got to swing this over to the other side. .75 degrees is between 70 and 80. Now, 75 degrees here. Let's put a mark on it. Back to this one. 75 degrees. Now, whenever we bend this up, let's go back to the notching. I can see it right here, right? So that's my first cut. So I'm going to my 75-degree mark. Like I said, some of you are going to go, oh boy. Some of you are going to go, yep, wouldn't have it any other way. So now that I'm marking, I want to make sure that my snip is covering the drop. But just for fun, cover it with your finger. So we're notching on the 75-degree line. On the 75-degree line. Our piece is going to go down, but we got this finger just hanging out doing nothing. We're going to go ahead and wiggle this till it comes off. Aye! Got it. All right, now while we're at it, let's go ahead and notch this tab. And the hem, tab, hem. Notice my snip is going to cover it. There we go. Now, now we're ready to start bending this up. Whenever we put a hem on here, one of the things I want you to think about is what we're going to be doing is reaching in and out of this organizer bin. So we're going to be using the inside of this. So that means we're going to fold the hem to the outside. And that way, when we're entering and exiting the bin like we are, we're not going to be engaging the raw edge of the hem. So this is one of those times when what you're doing with the project determines how you're going to bend the project. So let's look at this. Here's our drawing. Here's our pattern. And notice I've marked up, up, hem down, hem down, hem down, up 65, down. So if I don't put in a number, it's a 90. So that means down. This says up, that means up 90. Down, down 90. And we're just doing that for brevity. And so since this one is a 65 degree right here, we went ahead and marked that one up 65. Hem down. So what we've done is we've turned all of our hems to the outside of the organizer bin so that we've made it a smooth on our ingress and egress. Something I wanted to show you guys. We use these knife sharpeners. This is a knife sharpener that you can get in any hardware store. And this is how we will go around the edges of our project. And it deburrs the edge a little bit. If you watched our video on sawing versus shearing, you would know what the hawk bill is, and that's what we're taking off. So this is a really great use for a knife sharpener. We just drag it along here, no pressure, and it gives us a nice smooth edge. For the industrial stuff, once you become a highly skilled, highly paid professional, you step up to this one. This is a go-getter right here. It has replaceable blades. Oh boy, that's a great one. But for what you guys are doing, a knife sharpener. All right, we're ready to go bend it up. I'll meet you guys over at the break. All right, so this is the space for the 1/4 It's a little wider. Notice this tray is wider. Fits nice in there. So we have flat washers, lock washers, 1/4 5/16, 18, 3/8, 16, and then weirdo stuff. Cotter pins, fine threads. So these are the ones that I made 40 years ago. Still using them. All right, off to the break. These hems are all down. We used all 1/2 inch hems. The front of the brake is a 1/2 inch. This is a 10-foot hand brake. And so one of the things that we have to do here is, let's go ahead and mark all of these 1/2 inch. Marking them on the outside because that's the direction we're going. Look at that, man. I'm showing you guys a lot of different ways to do something here. All right, so let's put it on that line, bend it up. This handle closes it, this handle bends it. Now we're going to flatten it out. Don't go anywhere. I got to grab a pair of pliers. Oh, right here. Look at this. So when we bent that one, we got a little bit of this one. Look at this. Bam. Good as new. Now let's bend this one up. If the decision is up to us, I try to leave as much of the project in the brake, and that way we're not holding our project out front. The bend that you just saw me make, we could have made that out front. I could have made that out here and folded it around. It would have done the same thing. Matter of fact, let's do that. This just shows a little different. Now the project is out in front. We're going to straighten this little tab out here again. The name for these is regional. They could be tongs, hand seamers, duckbills. All depends on what part of the world you're in. Let's flatten this hem out. I like that. Let's bend this one up. Okay, one more. Today we're using all the tools that are all available to us because this is our sheet metal shop. But if you watched our tool tray video, this same project could be made with the same processes that we did in that. So now we're going to bend up our long bend here. That's going to go up 90. When this is flat like a table, that's 90. Flip it over, and I'm going to bend this long bend. And when we make this bend, it bends up that tab. So that's going to go there, there. When we make this bend, up 90, flat like a table. Look at that. That baby's really starting to take shape. All right, let's go over to the box and pan brake. So we just came from the 10-foot handbrake. We bent up this long seam, which bent up our tabs for us. If we would have put the tabs on here, we wouldn't have got our tabs bent up for free. So what I want to do now is we want those tabs to come to the outside, just like our little pattern here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this screwdriver in here and always do this over a table. All I'm doing is doing twisting. I'm just twisting, no pushing. So can any of you out there tell me what's wrong with doing this out here, that if my screwdriver comes out, I end up in a bad place, and now I'm looking for where they keep the Band-Aids. So always over a bench, over a table, or over the floor. And I just want to make sure that when this tab comes up, it goes to the outside of our organizer bin. So I've gave it just a little bit, convinced it just a little bit. We're going to do the same thing on the back. All I'm doing is twisting. I'm not pushing down. I'm just twisting. All I want to do is give it an idea. Which way would I like it to go? I would like it to go to the outside. Also, the way we folded these hems to the outside, we want these tabs to go inside there. So, I don't want to see anybody. This is wrong. If we had like a circle with a thing, that's what would go over this drawing, right over this picture right here. So what I want you to do is I just want to open this up enough to make sure our tab can go in there. So I'm not even pushing. And I'm turning. See how I've opened up? Can you see how that hem is opened up? We're going to do the same thing here. This one's already open. This one's open. This one's closed. See how that might give us a little bit of trouble when we want to go into there. So I'm just going to put this here, not pushing. If you start to push here and something goes wrong, you end up making a lot of noise and everybody gets mad at you. So I'm just going to put this little screwdriver and I'm going to give this a little bit of a tap. Now I'm just twisting. All I've done is open it up so this tab can go inside that hem. All right, we've talked about tabs and hems and box and pans. Here we go. This is 4-inch wide. That's the reason we made our project 4 1/8. Look at that. What a nice fit. So we're going to bring that down onto that line that we went through all the trouble to make. Here we go. Now as we bend it, we want to make sure that our tabs go to the outside. And we're just coming up nice. We're just making sure there's no binding. That's where the chocolate is kept, inside that box. All right. Look at that. All right. These are the magnets that our grandkids, they put all the magnets that they find in the shop, they put them on the front of the brake. So now let's go to here, up 65. I'm going to clamp it on that line right there. Making sure the tabs go outside and that the project goes inside. Boy, that sure looks good, doesn't it? All right, okay. A little wiggle room in there. So now you can see where our tab goes inside the hem. That's how that corner comes together. And then we're going to put a rivet in that. So we're going to hold that there where we want it. We're just going to put in one rivet today. Always make sure you put yourself out of harm's way. And when you drill, push as hard as you reasonably can. As hard as you reasonably can. Every time the drill bit rotates, it needs to be removing material. If the drill bit is going around and we're not removing material, see this? See the shavings right here? If it's not removing material, it's creating friction. Once we create friction, we can actually work harden the project, and it makes it harder to come back and finish the hole. So we're just doing a little fine tuning here. Making sure that we're not anywhere in a bad spot. So I don't think I have to show you all the bad ways that you could hold this so that once you drill the hole, it could get you. You got to give all these tools a lot of respect. So push as hard as you can reasonably push. This pan is one from, I think, maybe our first, was that our first video? Look at that. Still getting the job done. Come over here, put that there. I like it. One more rivet. Make sure that you're making shavings with your drill. If nothing's coming off, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're just making friction. A byproduct of friction is heat. And the heat will work harden the metal, which is going to make it even harder to drill the hole. Man, this is looking so good. Now, I'm just going to go around here, tap these edges a little bit. We're going to file that a little bit. Always with a file, you only cut one direction. Never file back and forth with a file. So, I'm pushing, or you could turn the file around and pull if you'd like. Direction is your choice, but it only cuts one way, and since this has a handle on it, we're always going to cut on the push. Now we're down to this part. We've already got a mark here. Look at that. There we have it. Look at that. Here's the 40-year-old. Here's the brand spanking new one. Look at that. I think that's pretty much. We could put another rivet in here. My old original ones, you see I have two. We could do that. But that's up to you. Depending on what you're going to put, you maybe put some things in here that are really light. These are some of the things we've made before. We did an introduction to triangulation last time, and we made a squared around transition. This is from two known points, you can arrive at a third known point. I noticed a lot of you watched the first part of the video, and then not as many watched the second, but the second one is where the magic happens. That's where it goes from a flat piece to the squared around transition. Look at that. Look at those facets in there. Looks like it should be made in a jewelry store instead of a sheet metal shop. So, if you didn't watch the second half is where the magic. Second half is where we took a flat piece and we made a squared around. Or in today's lesson, we took a flat piece and we made an awesome organizer bin. I really like it. I'm going to keep this one 40 years. Let me know how long you plan to keep yours. I appreciate you coming by today. And don't forget, sheet metal, it's awful. No, sheet metal is fun. I'm glad you stopped by today. Thanks for watching. You could make this, and what a great feeling that would be. You can put anything you want in it. I put in tools, I put in nuts and bolts, and I appreciate you coming by today. I appreciate you guys watching the whole video. You stuck it out all the way to the end. Make one. Send us a picture. I am, no. Sheet metal is fun at yahoo.com. Is that right? Sheet metal is fun at yahoo.com. If you make one, send us a picture. Or if you make any of these things. I don't think you're going to be making stainless steel pass-through shelves for your local jail. But if you do, send me a picture. All right, you guys. Thanks for coming by today. I've had a great time. Hopefully you've had a great time. This is from our shelf project. Our plenum with an end cap. Taper with a collar. Thanks for coming by. Sheet metal is fun. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.